All right. So very good evening to everyone. So let's continue with our macro topics. Here we are going to start our day with lesson 2, which is all about macro variables. Now in lesson 1, you people have got introduced about a macro language, why it is used. It's a text processing facility, correct? You have also seen that how a program flows in the memory. Either it's a simple SAS code or a code with macro, right? Then what is a macro trigger and how the macro variables represent. Now in this chapter, you people will get introduced much more in detail about macro variables. Vikram is admitting. Okay, so in this lesson, we'll get introduced to macro variables, automatic macro variables, macro variable references, user-defined macro variables, delimiting macro variable references, and of course, we'll understand what are macro functions. So let's get started with the introduction of macro variables. All right. So objective here will describe the purpose of macro variables, will describe where macro variables are stored, and will identify the two types of macro variables. So to understand the same thing, what is it telling here? That production programs might need to be updated with information such as the current date each time they are run. Use macro variables to minimize typing and make the code more flexible and reusable. So what does this mean is you are working as a data analyst and you have certain codes with you, and this code has to get automated where you have a proc steps given where they are generating reports. So this proc steps, every time they execute, you are manually doing certain changes that you want to insert the date and time at what this report is executing as a footnote. So you want the system's date and time. All right. So this is what they're trying to tell you with this calendar, that in case this report is getting executed on 19th of a day, whatever of the month is, it should come as a footnote or a title that on this date this is what it's executing. So instead of typing the date manually, you can make use of a macro variable. So what are macro variables? So it's simple. I will just tell you that it's a symbolic substitution for your values in your data. So macro variables, of course, they store text, including either partial or complete SAS statements or complete or partial SAS steps. Okay, so at this point, just understand that macro variables actually they store text, including this text could be either your complete or partial SAS statements or complete or partial SAS steps as well. Okay, so what does this mean? This is telling you have a code and it's a macro program. So percent sign, with anything with percent sign and percent sign is continued with a name is called as a macro. Okay, all right. So where this is stored? So it's stored in the memory, and the area of the memory is termed as a global symbol table. So macro variables are stored in a memory area termed as global symbol table. So by default, whenever we start our SAS session, we have system defined macro variables, which are default saved in your global symbol table. So what do you mean by system defined macro variables? So all the variables which is going to give you the system information are termed as system defined macro variables. Like for example, what is the current system date? So it is saved as sys date. If you have sys date 9, so sys date 9, sys date is the same, but the value represents as per this format. So date 9 means it is having date type of format with this type of width. Okay. Then sys day, that means system day, system time, what is the current system user who is using this session of your SAS. Okay. So all this information is saved into a global symbol table, and this are termed as automatic macro variables. Why automatic? Because they are defined by SAS and they are always available whenever you start your session. They are termed as automatic macro variables and they save the information of your system. Apart from automatic macro variables, in your global symbol table, you can also, you means I mean to say the analyst can always create their own user defined macro variables and they are also referenced or saved into global symbol table. So user defined macro variables apart from all system defined is this. So they are telling office, date one, unit. So what are this? So these are the macro variables created as per your data values. And this global symbol table is deleted at the end of your SAS session. But see to it or understand that whenever you start this global symbol table, your macro variables, automatic macro variables are always there in your global symbol table. User-defined macro variables can be added to global symbol table and this global symbol table is deleted when your session gets end. All right. So global symbol variables. So macro variables in the global symbol table are global in scope. So what do you mean by global in scope? They are always available. Have a minimum length of 0 character. That means you can create a macro variable and save it in this global symbol table with null value. It can have a value maximum with 65,534 K length or characters. So the maximum characters could be 65,534, which is 64K. Numeric values are stored as text. Why? Because we know macro is a text processing facility. So when it is saying text, it is like even if the value are numeric here, time, date, it is still going to be saved as text. All right. Okay. So what are the two types of macro variables now? Yes, you have got introduced earlier.
Automatic and
What?
user
Automatic
defined.
user defined.
Absolutely. Automatic and user defined macro variables. Okay. All right. One sec. All right. So let's understand what are automatic macro variables now. So we'll identify selected automatic macro variables and we'll display macro variables in log. So to see the macro variables in log, let's come into your SAS Studio. So macro variables, as we discussed earlier, it's actually SAS defined macro variables, which are available for us in the system whenever we start our session. So they are going to save the information about your system or about some system defined values. Okay. So how one can view those macro variables? So one can view those macro variables by using a statement called person put underscore automatic underscore. All right. So that is what the syntax is. We know what person put does. So person put is a statement where anything it will show the value with your person put into log. So here the scenario is we want to list the automatic macro variables where we can minimize our typing for dates and date in a report. Okay. So to understand what is the current system day and current system date, you can make use of this automatic macro variables. Okay. So my session is on for working. So let me go ahead. So I'm creating every time I start my session, you have to create a library. Once it's done, I'm showing you how one can view a automatic macro variable. So you write person put, it's a keyword underscore automatic underscore semicolon. So when you write this, it is going to give you the list of all system defined macro variables. So see, automatic system macro variables. So see, if you'll see, it's telling sys user ID. I have used my email login details. So it's giving my name. Version of my SAS programming is 9.4. Okay. Then it is telling what is the time. All right. So time zone it's telling me. Fine. Then at the same time, it's telling what is my system operating information. So it's telling it's Linux. Fine. Then if you move ahead, it will also give me the information about how many CPUs, number of observations. Okay, let's see about your sys date 9. So by default, whenever you start your session, we have not worked with any data set. So by default, it's telling what is the recent data set used. So it is default this version about the system. It's telling it saved the information about the system as a data set in work library. So if you see the current data set, even in the work library, if you observe, it will show you it is empty, but this is just trying to tell you that it is the information about the system. Okay. Of course, there is no data set currently. So what does sys DSN means? What is the recent data set created? So what is the data set name? Okay, DSN means data set name. So see, it's telling me sys day is Wednesday. Sys date 9, see its date in the date 9 dot format, and this is date dot format where the date is with two letters or two digits of your day, three letters of month, two digits of year. Here the same thing, only your width for year is increased, hence it is date 9 dot. Correct? So this is where the dates comes. This is where the day comes. Okay, so it's telling what is the bit of my computer's system. It's 64 bits. So this is all my system defined automatic macro variables, and this is where how you can list it, where you can find it, what are the values you can use it, or you can understand it. So you can write this person put statement with underscore automatic underscore. All right. So when you find this, now let's see how you can implement in your program. So before implementing in your program, or if you know now, suppose for example, I simply write proc print data equal to SAS help dot class. Correct. So we do have this table in this SAS help. You have cars class. Yes. So I simply write it and I tell that it should have a footnote telling date. Okay. And this date I want to represent for my report is I write ampersand sys date 9. So instead of typing manually the value, it's going to help my report to use this automatic macro variables where it will represent my report with the system date as a footnote. Okay, equal to sign is missing here. So do you see this footnote coming? Date 20 April 2022. Now why 2022? It's because we have used the format as ampersand sys date 9 dot. Understood. Now instead of typing the value manually, you will not every time remember the date. So it's better to use your system information by using your macro variable. Are you getting it? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Ashwini.
Good.
Yes.
Time I can write ampersand sys time. Okay. And I can say day. It could be ampersand sys date. All right. So now when I execute this, you'll find my report comes with my footnote with date, time, and day. All right. So this is how makes your task more simple. So this is what it's telling. Automatic macro variables are system defined, created when you start your session, that is at the time of SAS invocation. Global in scope, that is they are always available, hence they are called as global symbol, or they are saved in global symbol table. Assigned the values by SAS, and of course we can also save some automatic macro variables. Whenever we start your session, they will be available, so can be assigned values by user in some cases as well. So this is the list of some of your system defined macro variables. So some automatic macro variables have fixed values that are set at SAS invocations. So this is what it's telling. SysSP, SSP is the operating system abbreviation. Either it's Windows OS information with its bits of memory space. Okay. Then of course, which version we are using 9.4, user ID who is logged in the session, and so on. Fine. So it's also telling macro variables sysdate 9, and time store text, not SAS date or time values. That's why at the beginning itself they were telling that macro is a text processing facility. So it saves all the values as text. So even if you have date or numeric values or your time, okay, they all are saved as text. They are not saved as numbers.
So Ashwini,
Yeah.
the sys time is like when you log in, that is the time, or
Absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely correct, Swarupa.
So like the
Okay.
first time you log in that
Start
time,
your session. Yes,
then
yes.
after that if you log off and then again, it will be the same.
Try
If you
it out.
log
Very
off,
good question. Very good question. The
But
same day, if you log off and log in, check it out.
okay.
but
Okay.
you said this time and all they are SAS invocated.
Yes. So try it out. So it's all your try and learn. Try and learn. Okay. No
Okay.
worries. Fine. So what it's telling now, there is another list of automatic macro variables, sys last. So what this will save, it will actually save the name of the most recently created data set with the two level SAS dataset name. So for example, if I'm going to simply write it a data step like data class. Now you know this I'm creating as a temporary variable from an existing temporary data set from a permanent data set, correct? And I check percent put ampersand sys last. Okay, let's check. So I've used a data step. I'm creating a data set now. So a data set is created where it's saved into my work library, where I'm asking SAS to read from a specific input source to create an output data. This is not referred with any libref, so you know it will be by default saved into your temporary library, which is called as work library. And this is from a reference from permanent library. From this permanent library, you're reading a table. Okay, so it's therefore see it's note telling 19 observations read from this table, and see a new data set created with work.class as its name. See, by default it referred it to a temporary library called work. Has 19 observations and 5 variables. So by default in your data step, it is reading all the columns and all the observations from input data to your output data set. Fine. So data set is created, and because you have used person put with this instruction, it's telling the last data set created currently is work.class. Understood? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, Ashwin.
Yes.
So you have also some of the system defined macro variables called sysparam, which or you call it as PARM, any which way. This will store the values or values specified at SAS invocation. So it's like parameters, okay? So sys error means currently whichever step you have executed, either a data or a proc step, Did this data or proc step ended up or executed successfully with errors or without errors? So if it is without error, so it always saves the information as RC code, or it's called as a written code. So when the value for it is 0, that means the data step was successful. And if the value is greater than 0, that means the data or a proc step was executed was not successful because it had some error. So in our case, if I want to see this proc, or I want to check the value for this system defined value, which is ampersand sys error. Okay, only this. So value is 0. Okay, why? Because the currently executed data step and proc step, it was executed without any errors. Hence, it's successfully executed. Hence, its RC code, that means written code value is 0. All right. So this is just the information. Later on, whenever you want to check these values, you can make use of this system defined macro variable informations. Then it also has the information for syslib_rc to check whether if you have executed a current any libname statement and you want to see whether that libname statement executed without error, you can check this syslib_rc. Again, rc means it's a written code. The value is 0, that means it's successful. If it is greater than 0, that means you had an error with your libname statement. So if you want to see the list of automatic macro variables, you can also view it by using %put_automatic semicolon. So this word is a keyword which is defined by SAS, and it will list all system defined automatic macro variables. Okay, so you have a question here. Use this statement and check your current time. Does your sys time match your current time? Go ahead.
No,
Okay. So it's the
No,
time when you start your session.
but still it is
Okay.
not matching.
Okay. No problem. So sys time represents the time of your SAS invocation. It does not necessarily match the current time. Okay.
yes,
So that will be
Ashwini.
a constant time.
Yeah, it will be when you started your session. Time at what you invocation, that is what it's telling. When the time of
Even
SAS
date
invocation.
also.
Yes, absolutely.
Then
Okay.
what is it? Tuesday? The day is Tuesday. Some
Yeah,
2000.
because if in case if you might have started your session yesterday without log off, today you just logged in, but you did not, you just
For
like
us,
ended
it's
your session.
Tuesday only, Nirma.
Yes. So for you, it's Tuesday, correct? For me, it's Wednesday.
No, no. In your earlier slides, there is a 2015. Some date was mentioned.
Huh.
Is it constant or
No, this date will be your current system date.
okay?
So check your current system date. So for
Okay.
Tuesday, for you, what is the date?
As per
Even
GS,
Ashwini, for me also 14th September 2015, it's showing actually system date, but it's long back, right?
Why? No, because you are using your version, which is your windowing operating environment, dear, and that
Oh,
is the expired version. It's not the
okay.
current licensed version. So you might be backdating your date, and accordingly, you will be using this software, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, it's not licensed version, yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's backdated date. So even when you start your session, are you backdating your system date and then starting your session?
Okay. Fine.
Nilima? Oh no, what's Dharni? I hope you understood what I'm trying to tell you.
Can you explain, Nilma, Ashwini?
I was telling we are using SAS Studio, which is the cloud application.
Yeah.
Correct. So with cloud application, it will always give us the updated information. The version or the software which you are using, Dharni, it's your windowing operating environment software, which is not at all the updated licensed version. It
Yeah.
shows you the last licensed copy, which is in the year 2014. So whenever you are starting your session, I think even you might be backdating your system date to start SAS 9.4. Do you?
No, no, Ashwini. Actually, in system, it is 2022 only showing, but
It's okay.
in
That's what I'm trying to tell you, Dharni.
yeah.
Your SAS version is not at all an updated version. It is the last version which was licensed. Hence,
Okay.
it's showing you
We can't.
the
We
that
yeah. We
date.
can't change now.
No, no, no. It's because that software was last licensed that time. Hence, it's
Okay.
giving you the system date of that only.
Okay. Okay. Now we
Okay.
can't.
Ashwini,
Yes.
I have 20 April 2022, whereas it is 19 April at my place.
You have 20 April.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same for me
As,
also. And the time
as per
also.
GMT, it is as per GMT time zone.
It check your time zones.
My time zone is my like Boston time zone. It's 4/19/2022 right now, 10 p.m.
For me also same. It's showing Wednesday and 2022.
As per
So
GMT,
And this laptop is bought in America, so I'm definitely sure it's not from before or something like that.
it's nothing about laptop. It's all about the cloud application. It's a SAS version. Okay, it's updated version currently, which we are using as a
Interesting.
cloud application. So it
Okay.
is accordingly going to calculate the time, and accordingly at the time when you started your session, maybe whatever. Now I don't know how it's giving you that time, maybe, but this is what it is giving.
I'm getting 144 on time and 20 April 2022 on date. I can
It's
try the
because
time zone.
if it is one whatever the time as per this time zone, it's giving you the next day, which is 20th April
Mhm.
2022. Okay.
So time zone.
Ashwini, this error you said, right? It will be all errors, or it will be only syntax error it will be showing?
It
Like,
would be about your sys error, means the current step, whichever you have executed for the recent step, whether that particular step executed without any errors or no errors. So it could be, of course, errors is when we get syntax error, your data step stop executing there itself, correct?
yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
so
like
for
for
that
your day, yes.
it will be giving. Okay.
Yes. So for example, for now, look at you. In case I do not give this semicolon and I try to execute this step, okay? Now let's check the value. So yes, we have error. We know. So see this error. Is it equal to 0?
No.
It's greater than 0 because my data step currently is having an error.
Yeah.
Getting it? So it's my syntax error. Why? Because my data step is not ending with semicolon.
So just
Correct?
for that data step, it is giving it, right?
It's
So
only for recently executed any step,
yeah.
recently executed step. So either it's a data or a proc step, whichever.
Okay.
Okay, Vikram, Arun, I hope you people are following what we are discussing. Vikram, can I have your
Yeah, I'm following.
great? All right. So let's understand macro variable references. That means how one can refer the macro variable. So we'll explain how macro variable reference are handled by the word scanner and a macro processor. Very important part, because normally we know what is the program flow, correct? So as if you remember, I'll just revise. So whenever a code is executed, now for example, in our case also, I had executed this step. which is your data step. So when I'm submitting this step, of course, including your run, so this step is, it's actually, this code is copied to the area in the memory called input stack. From input stack, it is sent to word scanner, where word scanner will start doing the tokenization. So it will start breaking out the code into its fundamental units called tokens. So depending on what the words are, it will accordingly tokenize your values. Like this is all your name tokens because those are simple names. If there are any special signs, it is going to differentiate as a special token. Once the tokens or fundamental units, it's done or it starts scanning, your compiler is going to request these tokens. Until it receives a semicolon, it indicates end of the statement, and it will keep on taking in all the tokens until it receives run. So during compilation, it checks for syntax error. So in our case, during compilation itself, it got a syntax error telling it that we have a missing semicolon at the end of your data statement. Hence, it's treating as if data, this is the name of a data set, this is the second name of the data set, this is the third name of data set. So it's not understanding this syntax. So it's treating the data statement has started with this and it's ending here. But all these are actually, it's treating as if a data set name, as if you're creating multiple data sets. And hence it's telling the set statement is not allowed in data statement when option are required, all like this. So it's asking you to check your syntax. Are you getting it? Hence, this is where during compilation, your syntax error is checked. And when compilation is end, when SAS encounters run, it indicates it is the end of your step. And hence it stops processing. It gives you the note into log that your SAS session stopped processing this step because of error and data statement was used. All right. So this is how it works. So we know what the program flow now is. Input stack, from input stack to word scanner, from word scanner to compiler. So now let's understand how it
Actually,
works. Yes,
I did not understand what was the mistake in that statement. Usually that's how we write it, right?
Priyanka, observe this step carefully.
Semicolon. First data step.
Oh,
Is
right.
is your is your set appearing in blue?
No, there is. So it should, the problem should be in the first line, right? Not the second one.
So it's
Data
treating as if
class.
it's, so it's treating as if this is a
Got
part of
it.
your data statement, right?
Yes. Got it. Got it.
Okay. Moving ahead. Okay. So as per our business scenario, what they want is they want to generate a report where your report has a footnote which gives you system defined information related time, date, and day when your report was executed. So it's telling use automatic macro variables to generate footnotes with the following information, that is your report time, report day, and report date. Fine. So when you want to refer any macro variable within your program, you refer it with ampersand sign and ampersand sign followed with a name. So this becomes a macro variable reference, which is a symbolic substitution for a value. So macro variable reference begins with an ampersand followed with a macro variable name. So macro variable reference are also a symbolic reference, can appear anywhere in a program, are not case sensitive, represents, it's a macro trigger. Yes. So if you remember in the previous chapter, how does SAS differentiate with the base SAS program and a macro language program? Anything which starts with ampersand followed with a macro name is a macro variable. And if you remember, we had also discussed that in this program, anything which starts with percent followed with a name is actually a statement or a program for your macro. So this becomes the reference of your macro variable, and this is the macro statement, correct? So in this case, it's telling ampersand represents, it's a trigger of a macro language. RR, because it's a macro language, we saw yesterday or day before yesterday that when a program consists anything which indicates it's a macro language or it's a macro trigger, it is processed into a area called as macro processor. Correct? So it will not go to compiler, but it will take those macro values or macro language words into your macro processor. Fine. So macro variable reference is telling when macro processor receives a macro variable reference, what it does, it searches your global symbol table for macro variable. So it will process in macro processor, and macro processor will search for your macro variable in global symbol table. If it finds the value, it will resolve the value and it will pass on the value in your program for your further normal program flow, that is from word scanner it will go to compiler. Okay, so this is what it happens. It resolves the macro variable by substituting its values, and in case a macro variable value is not found in a global symbol table, it's not an error, but it will send you a warning into log telling apparent symbolic reference sysday not found. So see the word, it's not sysday, it's telling syday. Okay, so in case in your program, if you have written like this, so I'm using this program and I use it as suppose, and I want to find out the value. So when I'm looking out and when SAS will try to resolve the value in macro processor, because it's trying to search the value as sys last as a macro variable in global symbol table, there is no macro variable called sy last. It's sys last, but because it did not find, it's not a syntax error, it's not a logical error, it's not a data error. It just did not find this macro variable to resolve its value. Hence, it's just trying to tell you to give you a warning. Apparent symbolic reference was not resolved, and it moves ahead and reads your further statement, and your further values got resolved in our current example. Understood? So it's not a syntax error. It's just that it's trying to read or search for this macro variable, and because this is not found, it cannot resolve its value. It's giving you the warning. All right, so please always understand, in case if you get this type of warning, do not get panic. It's an indication for you that either that macro variable you have not created or it's not in your symbol table. All right, so now understand this program and let's understand how it works. So I've written a statement called person put today is sys day. So because it's a statement, it's a macro statement. This macro statement will be read into macro processor. Within macro, while you're tokenizing, it finds it has another trigger where it is a macro variable. So this macro variable, it will go and check the existence of this macro variable in global symbol table. It finds it, hence it will resolve this statement where this macro variable will be resolved to its value Tuesday, and it gives you the statement in log. Why? Because you've used it with person put. And in case you want to check the value for your macro variable as ampersand sysday, you can also write it person put ampersand sysday, or you can write ampersand equal to sysday. So it's the recent, for 9.4 version onwards, it's a recent development that you can also refer a macro variable to be resolved in this way. So it will give the ampersand means it's your sysday. So what is sysday? It will result equal to Tuesday. So it's the way you check the values in log. So either in our case, it was resolving like this, or in case if you want to see the values, you can also write the values as ampersand equal to, and you can write is sysdate 9. Okay, I'm just telling you this example. So when I write in this way, it will give you or resolve the value and show it in your log. So when you write ampersand equal to, so because it's a symbolic reference, see, it's sys date 9 dot. Okay, so see, it's 9 date. See, it's a spell check for me. Okay, so it's telling sys day 9 is not resolving. It's showing the value as it is. So it's again a warning that this particular macro variable did not resolve. So I write sys date 9. Let's execute and check ampersand equal to sysdate 9. So it is just the way how you represent the value. So it will show the value because you have written ampersand equal to sysdate 9. So this ampersand means sysdate. So this will show you as sysdate equal to, and it will resolve the value this way. All right. It's just the way you see the value. This is also one way you can check the value. So it's showing it like this. All right. Okay. So substituting how it works in the memory. So this was your statement. Okay. Now pay attention. Very important point as a data analyst, you should know at the back end how it's working. So it's telling person put today is ampersand sys day. So because you have submitted this code for execution, it's copied to input stack. From input stack, you know, it will move to word scanner. So when it comes to word scanner starts tokenizing. But during tokenization, it finds it has a macro trigger. Why macro trigger? Because the statement is or the word is beginning or preceded with this percent sign. So it's percent followed with the name token. Yes, it's a macro trigger. It's a macro statement. It is passed on to macro processor. So the rest part of your this statement is today is ampersand sys day. So this statement again it moves into your word scanner and it finds it has another macro trigger ampersand followed with the name. So this is a macro variable. So it will look into your macro more global symbol table to resolve this value. So when it checks for this value, it finds it has this value, it gets resolved. And because it's a person put statement today is Tuesday, this will be shown into log. Understood how it works?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So this is all about your processing at the backend. Okay, so now answer this poll. So what you will be doing, you will be opening this demo D01 and it's telling what are the footnotes in your proc.fric output. Yeah, go ahead and work on this.
Created ampersand system time, ampersand sys day, ampersand sys date. It came like that, Ashwini. Footnote.
Yes. Okay, so check your log.
Macro variables are not resolved for this.
Okay, so it's not resolving. Fine. Others, are you all on the same note? So how you need to open this code? So for Vikram and Arun, so if you have this macro folder, yeah, at that day we have uploaded it. So it consists of code. So see, M1 means it's a macro, okay, course, and it's lesson 2 D01. So open this code and you have this program. Fine, so I've already created my library. So I'm executing this footnote with this proc.fric. So now when I'm executing this footnote with proc.fric, it's showing me that my footnotes are not resolved. But at the same time, it's showing me in my log, I have certain warnings. Okay. So those warnings will be telling, or it's not showing you any warnings also, but it's simply telling that this is not getting resolved. Now, why it's not resolving? It's because though you have this macro variables written in your program,
It's
but
not
they are,
double.
yes, they are given into single quotes, because your footnote text, always we give the text into quotation marks. So when this text is treated into a quotation marks, so while macro or while your word scanning, if you remember, it tokenize your words, and we have one type of token called as literal token. So it treats this as a whole as a one word. Okay, so because it treats as a one literal, it will not try to resolve this, or this are not passed to macro processor. So if you want this values to get processed in macro processor and resolve the value, you put this into double quotes. So double quotes, that means yes, it will treat it as a whole as a literal string, and of course within it, it will check for any macro triggers. So once it is there and now you execute with double quotes, you'll find your program gets executed successfully and your values are resolving. Are you getting it now?
Yes, Ashwini, we got.
Okay. So this is what it's telling here, that the word scanner does not tokenize literal enclosed in single quotation marks. So macro variables do not resolve. So to make your macro variables to get resolved, you put it into double quotation. So to reference your macro variable within literal, enclose the literal in double quotes. Fine. So it gets resolved. So see how it works. Pay attention now. Understand the process. So this was your, for example, your program. You're writing proc print, giving the title in quotes, in double quotes. Today is sys date, run. So this program will move from input stack to word scanner. Okay, so first statement is all clear. It goes to compiler. Then the second statement was title. Within title, it is having quotes. So it's a literal, correct? So it's a double quotation. So during word scanning, the whole literal is treated as a literal token. But within it, now it encounters a macro trigger. So because it's a macro trigger, because you have given double quotes, it will treat it as a literal, but within it, it finds it has a macro trigger. Only that word is sent to macro processor for processing. Here it will check its value to be resolved from global symbol table. The value is Tuesday. This value get resolves into input stack. Then this as a whole becomes as a literal in word scanner. So this as a literal with semicolon as the end of your statement is sent to compiler. The statement ends and now run is read. It is sent to compiler, and what SAS will do once the run encounters, it indicates it's the end of your step and proc print gets executed. Getting it now? Understood? Yes?
Yes, Ashwini.
Okay. So answer this poll. Macro variable references are resolved by which of the following?
Micro.
Microprocessor.
Micro.
B.
Okay. Vikram, can you answer this?
I think it's a macro processor.
Okay. Very good. It's macro processing. All right. So substitution within SAS code. Now let's understand how it works within SAS code. Okay. So what's your program? Proc print data is equal to ampersand sys last, title listing of sys last, run. Okay. So what is sys last? You know what is the current executed or current last data set created. Okay. Fine. So currently it's telling orion.all. So now let's see. From input stack, it goes to word scanner. Word scanner itself tokenizes words. This is all clear. It goes to compiler, but within it, it has a macro reference. This is going to go into macro processor. It will try to resolve this value looking into your global symbol table. This value is resolved, passed on to input stack. Again, it has to follow this process. Hence, the result value has to be written to input stack. Okay. So from input stack, it will go to word scanner and it will go to compiler for compilation. Then the next statement is title. Again, within title, you have a macro variable reference, correct? So it's ampersand. Sys last, again, it will resolve, give the value, and the whole statement gets executed, compiled, and the program gets executed. Now understand this code. So earlier code was simple, okay? It got executed. So now look at this program carefully. It has program written proc So now look at this program carefully. It has program written proc print data equal to oren.exp, whatever the dataset name is, title with double quotes, telling expenses for AMP, R and D. Okay. So this program from input stack, it goes to word scanner. See, it's getting compiled. Yes. What is it? So why it's taking this way? Because your
Ampersand.
title, yes, title you have put into double quotations. It will treat it as a whole literal, but because it's a double quotation, it will check within the codes whether you have any macro trigger. Yes, it has a macro reference. So it's a variable. It's treating as if ampersand D. It's not treating it as R and D. It's treating that ampersand and D is ampersand D. That is a macro variable. So that ampersand D is passed on to macro processor. It will try to look into your global symbol table, and it, because it does not find this macro variable, it will immediately write a warning to log, and it will keep on processing your program. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So read it. If the macro processor cannot resolve a reference, the tokens are passed back to the word scanner. The word scanner passes them to the compiler. Okay. Now the next question, or the next look at this code. Example, reference a non-existent macro variable within SAS code. So it's telling proc print data equal to ampersand SYD LST. So what do you think it will work like this? Do you think it will work?
No.
So how it will give you the information in log regarding this code?
Is it the spell
Yes.
SYD it is?
Uh,
So it cannot be resolved.
okay. So it will give warning. That's what you're telling.
Yeah.
Okay. And anything else? If you think a bit logically with respect to your SAS, and if you are aware with all your base SAS topics or revision of your syntaxes, so what next it will do?
When it will go into title, it will give you listing of, and it will give you the last uh, file it has run, which is
Okay.
last.
Hmm.
So it will be listing off as title, but then the words is last will be read by the word scanner, and with the answer will be given by the processor as
But this is
whatever.
with respect to title, but what about your proc print statement?
So that one will not run it. It will give a warning for that one.
Okay.
That's
So
all.
it will only give the warning.
It cannot run anything because it will not find anything there, right?
Okay. Let's check. But I will tell you that it will give you warning and a error. So see, there are three errors. You have one warning. So what
One,
it is telling you, first and preferences, of course, during word scanning, it finds it's a macro trigger. It goes this to macro processor. It will try to resolve this value in global symbol table. There is no word called SYD last. So hence immediately a warning statement is provided. Then it's read as it is as a simple text. it goes to compiler, but in compiler it tries to look as if it's a dataset name. And as per your naming conventions of a SAS dataset, the name never starts with any special sign. The name starts with either a new character or an underscore. Correct? So this is a going to be your syntax error. So it's telling, it's reading as sys last, and of course this name is invalid. Okay, even if it ignores this sign and it reads as sid last as a data set, this data set is not available in your work library. That's why it's telling file work.sys data does not exist, and it's telling it expecting a name, and hence it's telling symbol is not recognized. Why? Because as per the naming conventions of a SAS data set, it should always begin with a letter or an underscore. Understood?
Yes, Ashwini. Yes.
Got it.
Got it? So that's why I said your basics of your base SAS related to the naming convention, you need to think upon it also. Okay, so this is what, of course, warning, because it's looking it into your symbol table to resolve as a macro variable. It's not finding. Then if it's not finding, it will normally read to compiler. So this compiler, it will treat as if it's a dataset name, but as per the naming convention, the name of the dataset should begin only with a letter or an underscore. Here it's starting with a special sign. Hence, it's invalid name, it's expecting a name, and the symbol is not recognized. And therefore, your SAS system stopped processing because of error. That's it. All right. So this is how it works. So you got this unresolved references. So you have to be very careful with respect to names when you are giving into your data. Okay, so there is exercise for this. So let's come to your PDF. So it's lesson 2, automatic macro variables. So with this, macro variable reference also we had seen, correct? And we have an exercise on page 2-29. So here they are trying to tell you that instead of every time giving the path for your data files, you can create a macro variable and reference as a path. So what they are trying to tell here is, it's a very simple thing what they are trying to tell, that simply create a macro variable, telling it %let, create a macro variable name called path, to connect with your library. And here you give the, not, is equal to, and what is the path for all your data files for macro? Go ahead, for macro folder, go into your properties, copy this path, make use of it here. So this becomes your macro variable named path. So let's check what is the value for this path. So ampersand equal to with %put path. Okay, so let's see what value it will give you. Okay, so path is equal to your macro data path. Okay, so let's make use of a very simple thing. Orion, in double quotes, I give my macro variable name, which is path. Ampersand path, correct? So this is where a simple way of every time creating a library. So refer your path as a macro variable. Done. So it's created successfully. So you have a macro variable created for your path. And what is that ampersand path? It's this. Get it? Correct? So this is one way where you can simplify your program in your macro by using a macro for your path in your library. All right. So apart from this, now what is the exercise they are telling on page 2-29? Displaying automatic macro variables. You can check the values. Are the values of automatic macro variable system sysdate 9 accurate? So that we have already discussed. Okay. So apart from level 1, come to level 2, using macro variables. So it's telling using a sort procedure, sort the dataset oren dot continent by continent name. See to it that you are not going to disturb your original table. You write out equal to option in your proc sort statement so that you do not overwrite your original data. Proc print your sorted dataset. You should display a title for it. So it's telling submit the program. Using automatic macro variables, what is the value of automatic macro variables is last after the data step has been submitted. So next point is about this. So create a new data set and check the value from syslast. Then what is the value of automatic macro variable syslast when now you are going to use in procprint? That means you are going to use this. And now check the value. Okay, just try it out, this very simple thing. So let's move ahead with user defined macro variables now. So let's see how a user defined macro variable is created. Now, in this case, in our example, now in a very first code, you know that we have used this proc print for your data set where you have executed on class table, correct? Where you are actually generating a report. So by default, proc print is executing all the rows and all the columns. It's a list report which you're getting. Now this is the data which giving you the information about class for name of the student, age, sex, height, and weight. I'm going to generate a report where I'm writing this code where I want only those students whose age is maybe greater than equal to 13 age. Okay, fine, and I'm executing my report. So when I execute this proc print, I get the report for the students, not with all 19 rows, but only from those all people who have their age which is equal to 13 or greater than 13 age. Okay. Now next thing is I want the report where I want now the report to be generated not on 13, but I want the report for all the candidates whose age is greater than equal to 15. So what I'm doing it, I'm doing the manual changes. Correct? Are you understanding what I'm trying to tell you?
Yes.
Yes, and suppose the height or the weight, let's see the height is greater than 60 maybe. So what I'm doing is again, I'm writing and weight column is greater than equal to 60. So I'm selecting all the students whose age is greater than equal to 15 and age is greater than equal to 60. With this combination of the values of my data, I'm getting this value. But now next requirement is I want people with the age of 16, if weight is greater than or maybe less than 50, whatever. Let this age weight be as it is, but I want age is 16. So what you do is you do the manual changes here again and execute your program. So instead of doing this manual changes in your program, why don't we create a macro variable where this values, instead of typing every time, it gets automatically substituted with your macro variable. Hence, one can create your own macro variables, which is termed as user defined macro variables, by writing %let statement. And I suppose I give the variable name. You can give the any variable name, but I'm giving the name which is very close to our values. Okay, so I try to give the name as age and I give a tentative value. Fine. And instead of now writing a manual value, I represent this value as a symbolic reference with age, as ampersand age as a macro variable. So when I execute this statement, It's called as a macro statement. Why? Because it's starting with percent followed with the name token. It's ending with a semicolon. So it's a macro statement. So with percent let, it always creates this macro variable with this value in your global symbol table. So in case if you want to check this value here with ampersand value as age, now let's check whether it's creating this macro variable with this value as age equal to 13. So in my log, you can know, you can see the values for your user defined macro variable with ampersand equal to 13. Correct? So see, it's telling, it's referencing that your age is resolving to 13. Have you observed carefully that though the macro variable name which I'm giving, it's in small case, but it's resolving with uppercase. That means in your global symbol table, the macro variables are always saved in uppercase values. Okay, but it's not necessary. You should always give this case sensitive. It's not like this. Okay, and it's telling the value it's created is 13. Now I use in my proc print, I execute this. So in my proc print, I'm using it in my where clause to select the values on age 13 and all the weight which is greater than equal to 60. So see all the people with this. Now, next age if I want is 15. So what changes or where the changes in my program I should make here so that I create the report with age as 15.
In percent let.
Absolutely correct. So I also want a title for my report. I give this is the report for students with age equal to, I write ampersand age. Okay. Now I want now the changes I'll be doing only at one place, which is in percent let, and I re-execute my percent let along with my proc print. So wherever in my program I have ampersand age written, it will resolve to my age, which I have currently provided in percent let. So your global macro variable value gets updated in global symbol table with 15 value, and now it's selecting the values with this age, and you get this subsetting report with your values with age also. Getting it? So in case if you want to check that where your macro variables or whether this macro variable is substituting the value correctly, how you'll come to know? Is it telling anywhere in log that it is substituting to macro variable value as 15? Now with where it's telling, because where is to subset your data. Hence the criteria here is you have to select the values age greater than equal to 15. But anywhere in your title, whether it's telling that it's substituting correctly, here it's substituting correctly. Does you get any message here in log? Yes?
No.
No, correct. So if you want to check this, whether it's substituting correctly, what you can do is you have a global statement called options. So write options and you use an option called as symbol gen. So what this symbol gen does, that wherever in your program you have a macro variable and it resolves in log, it will give you the message that wherever a macro variable got resolved, it tell you that it resolves with a respective value. So when I check my log, so see, it's telling in my program, in title I have a macro variable, okay, in where I have a macro variable. So in title there is a macro variable, so before it's telling a symbol gen that this macro variable age is resolving to 15. In where I am having ampersand age, hence with symbol gen it's telling ampersand age is resolving to 15. Along with it, in footnotes you have this macro variables, so all these macro variables are resolving. That's what it's giving you the symbol gen. Now the position of the symbol gen to resolve the macro variable is not constant. Either it will give the message before this or it will give the message after this. See, here also with title, before this title is getting executed, it giving the message of age when resolving before title. Here it's giving here after where, but here before your notes or footnote for this automatic macro variables, it's telling these are getting resolved. All right. So symbol gen is an option which tells you in log that your macro variable is resolving to a specific value. All right. Are you getting it what symbol gen is doing?
Yes.
So it's an option statement. With options, you write the symbol gene. So again, option is a global symbol table where if you want to check any values with your code to be processed or your code to be representing some value, you use those options in your statement. All right. So this is where with %let one can create a user defined macro variable, and this macro variable is also saved in your global symbol table. Hence it resolves this value whenever you use in your program. Fine. So this is the introduction for your next topic, user defined macro variables. So one can create user defined macro variables and one can also display the values of user defined macro variables in log. So the business scenario here is further automate your program with user defined macro variables where you're writing a program, but now as per your data values, you want to refer those values as a macro variable. But we know that you have automatic macro variables which just refer the system information. So for data information to be referred at macro variable, you need to create your own macro variable and refer it in your program. So you create a macro variable with %let statement. So see here, you're giving the macro variable name. Here the name is name equal to you give the value. So the value you're providing is Ed space Norton. So when a macro variable is created with this name in a global symbol table, so the value how you provide the same value, it is saved into macro variable with its case is preserved and the space between the words is also preserved. All right. So %let statement is an open code statement. That means it's not a part of any step, either a data or a proc. You can write it independently anywhere in your program. And the syntax is variable name equal to its value with %let. All right. So understand some of the features or considerations or characteristics with this user defined macro variable. So it's telling macro variable names follow SAS naming conventions. Very important. So the name of the macro variable which you're giving here, see this name, it is following the SAS naming convention that it should not begin with any special sign. It should begin only with letter or an underscore followed with name, letter, underscore or number. Okay. It should not be more than 32 characters long. If a macro variable already exists, understand if this name variable already exists in global symbol table, it will overwrite with the current value which you are passing on. So in our case also, earlier we had provided with age value was 13. Okay, but later on we changed the same name, but the value was changed to 15. So the existing variable was just overwritten with a current value. Hence your report which was generated was with age only with 15. Correct. Now, if I want this age with all the people which age is suppose 13. So I already have a macro variable in my global symbol table named age. So with this statement, it will simply existing variable will get overwritten in global symbol table with the value of 13. And you are implementing in your proc print. So you get the result for all the students with age greater than equal to 13 and their weight, whatever you have provided. So you get your title also and you get it in your age also. All right. So that's what it's telling. So if variable or value contains a macro trigger, the triggers are evaluated before %let statement executes. So what does this mean? Okay. So this I'll explain you this in upcoming slide. First, understand how the values could be. So minimum length of the value is 0 bytes with no characters. Maximum with 64K bytes. Maximum characters is 65,534. Number tokens are always stored as text. So here also, though our value here is numeric, but because it's a macro language, we know macro language itself is a text processing facility. So dates or any numeric values are always saved as text. All right. Mathematical expressions are not evaluated. Case is preserved. Case is preserved means for the value. Leading and trailing blanks are removed when you are creating a macro variable. quotation marks, if any, are stored as a part of your value. Now read this slide carefully so that you can answer the next upcoming poll. Fine?
Yes.
Okay. Read this previous slide also carefully.
Yes, Ashwini.
Okay, now look at these examples. Define the name and value of each macro variable created by this %let. Now, how this value will be saved? %let name equal to Ed space Norton. So how it will be saving it in global symbol table?
Same with case
Same,
sensitive.
but remember it has leading and trailing spaces here. So it will be removing those leading and trailing spaces.
Just the name.
Yes. Now, how about this? One
It
sec,
will
just
have
one sec. Nilima, I find that you are having some stress while speaking. So please do not take that stress while speaking. Even if you do not reply, it's all fine. But I would ask other participant to please keep on replying. Okay. All right. Yes. So how about this next value?
this will be saved with the trailing and the leading blanks because it's inside the code.
Absolutely correct, Priyanka. The value will be saved with your quotations. All right. How about this?
It will be same.
It will be same, yeah, because we use
Correct.
double quotations.
Double.
Absolutely. Yes. How about this?
It will be a null.
Absolutely. No values. Okay. Null. How about this?
3 plus 4.
Absolutely. Mathematical expressions are not evaluated. It will be saved as 3 plus 4 as a text value itself. How about next value?
0.
Absolutely. Now tell me, with this statement, if you have read this earlier statement, where it was, yeah. So what it's telling, if a variable or value contains some macro triggers, the triggers are evaluated before your %let statement executes. So if this statement is clear, now answer for
It
this.
will be 0 plus 3 plus 4. So it will be 3 plus.
It will be 0 plus
No,
3
no,
plus
0 plus 3 plus 4, I think.
Absolutely. So total is ampersand total. So what is ampersand total? Earlier you have created the value as 0, correct? So 0 plus what is ampersand sum? The
3
value is
plus
3
4.
plus 4. So 0 plus 3 plus 4. So what is the next value? X is equal to var list as it is. Now tell me how would we do this?
Name will be
Name
at
is
Norton.
It is ampersand X, right? Name,
Yeah.
it's var list.
var list.
Okay.
Yeah. Var
Yes.
list
So it will be var list equal to name space age space height because it's ampersand X. So X here we created as var list. Getting it, Priyanka?
Got it.
Shanmuga, Vikram, Arun, I hope you people are following it. Great. Vikram,
Yeah, I'm following.
Great. Okay, now answer this poll. What is the value of macro variable Z?
15
15
minus
minus 10.
Absolutely correct. Okay, now let's work in your data. So use a macro variable to select a numeric value. So in this example, they are using a proc print, or they are generating a list report on orion.order underscore fact table where quantity is greater than 4. You're using this value of 4 in your title also. So you're hard coding this numeric value. So you can refer this numeric value instead of typing it every time as a macro variable. So you're creating a macro variable named as units with %let statement. Now instead of 4, you are going to write it ampersand units. Correct? And this is where in log it tells you the value is resolved. How you come to know? Because in where you are subsetting the value, hence it's telling the value got resolved to 4. So if it's a character value now, look at your very important point. When we have a character value to be representing as a macro variable, understand how it works. Very sensitive part of your coding. So we know whenever we are going to write a character value to be subsetting, we always put in quotes. Correct? So here the value is where city is Sydney, and we put it in quotes. So when you're creating a macro variable, see to it, you are simply giving the value, okay? And here you are referring it as ampersand office. Of course, while referencing, put it into double quotes. All right, because it's a character value. Understood? Earlier with units, you were not giving quotes. Why? Because here the units are 4 which get resolves, though here it is a text value, but for your quantity column the value is numeric, hence no need of quotation. Are you getting it now?
yes.
Okay, though the value for macro is text, but we are not using this from your data set. It's just representing this, where for this column it will refer the value as 4, and 4 for this column is numeric. No need of writing quotation for numeric values. That's what they are trying to tell you. Same with character values. Here of course you have to provide double quotes because it's a character value. It normally represents this way, ideally. Correct? Hence, you need to give double quotes for city column. Now here also, see, now you are creating a macro variable where you are subsetting a data order date between day 1 and day 2. Now this day 1 and day 2, you are creating two macro variables, and the values, it's a calendar date. It's in the form of date 9 dot. And you know, in SAS, your dates are always saved for this column as number. So if you want to select the values between two these dates, you need to give this D constant and this date, so that this calendar date is converted into SAS date. Correct? Ideally, we write it, because now here it's a macro variable, you put this into double quotes. Same goes with title. I hope you are understanding what is it trying to tell you. So this code is, someone please has kept your microphone on. Please mute it because I could hear the background noise. So ideally the same thing how you write it here is, I just show you this code. So ideally how we do this, suppose you do it manually where you want 25 May 2011. Correct? You do it in this way ideally. I hope you agree or you remember.
Yes, yes, Ashwini.
Right. So we know this is a calendar date. So to convert this calendar date, we put it into quotes and we give D. So this D means it's a date constant where the calendar date is converted to SAS date. Correct? Swarupa, Priyanka, Shanmuga, Nilima. So now instead
Yes.
of typing this value, you represent as a macro variable. Now because it's a macro variable, always put it into double quotes. And this macro variables are created here. Hence, in title also you put this text into double quotes as a literal. So execute this. Done. Now you get the values which are extracting for the dates from your data for order dates between 25 May 2011 to 15th June in 2011. In your data for order fact table, which is the table order fact. So if you check your table order fact, you have the data for the year 2011. Correct? Hence, we are working on it. So see, order date from 2007 onwards, whatever the values are, it's having 100 rows. So accordingly, we are selecting the dates. Fine. Order date is 2009, 2010. You have 2011. So whatever the dates for 11 is, accordingly, it will work out. So it has total 617 rows. So depending on this order date, from 25th May till 15th June, whatever the dates are, it's coming into your current report. At this observation, this condition was true. At this observation in your original table, this condition was true. At this observation in your original table, your order date was true between 25th May to 15th June. Getting it? Right? Agreed? Yes. Okay, now answer this poll. Which where statement is correct? Is it A, B, or C?
Double quotes.
Yes.
See,
Absolutely correct. Agreed, everyone?
Yes.
Yes, Ashwini. Yes.
Okay. So in case if you want to check that in your current global symbol table, what are the list of user defined macro variables which you have currently created? You write person put underscore, you write user underscore. So you'll get the list of only user defined macro variables. You will not get your other system defined automatic macro variables because those are automatic. So here we get, these are user defined. This is user defined. Okay. So this was user defined. So of course they are in global symbol table. So even if you check your values with percent put underscore automatic underscore, see it simply gives it's automatic. It's only gives you the list of sys, see, system defined. So it's nowhere giving you any information of user defined. In case if you want to see the user defined, you write underscore user underscore. Okay. So with this, you'll see your user defined macro variables in log. So what does symbol gen do? So if you want to see that SAS is resolving the value appropriately, you write it in your program with options symbol gen. So symbol gen will give you the values wherever it's resolving for your macros into log. So it's telling symbol gen is a system option which writes macro variable values to log as they are resolved. So default setting is no symbol gen. So if you want to keep this setting on with showing the values resolving correctly, write option symbol gen. And in case if once you have done with your all your user defined macro variables creation and using it, immediately after your program is using your system defined or sorry user defined macro variables, try to free up the SAS memory. Hence you write it simdel and I write just the macro variable names as a list. See, it's the names, it's not with ampersand sign. So I simply write the names as office Units. Have we created units earlier? Nowhere. It's okay. Age we had created, okay? So I write simdel age. Understand. And if I want to check whether they are still there, I write person put ampersand office ampersand units ampersand age. I'm checking if it got deleted. So percent simdel and a name of a macro variable, it will erase or it will clear up your memory to remove the macro variable. So see, it's telling office has been deleted. Hence, when you're trying to check the values whether they are there, it's telling it's not available because it's not able to resolve the value. Getting it? Because first I deleted and then I'm checking whether it's there to resolve the value. Understood?
Yes, Ashwini.
Yes.
Okay.
No symbol gen. Why we use no symbol gen?
We are not using it. It's telling that default setting is no symbol gen because earlier, did we get any time the messages earlier that in your program it's resolving successfully in this log? Did we get anywhere the message that it's resolving successfully? No. So if
No.
you want to check that whether it's resolving successfully, you make use of this options called as symbol gen. Default setting is no symbol gen. Are you getting it now?
Yeah. Yeah, I got it. And we have to write it at the top of the coding.
Yes, because ideally SAS reads the statement in order. So if you first on the message that it should keep on giving the message symbol gen when your program is processing, it will give the message. In case if you write it at the bottom here and this all got executed, will this work then? Are you
No.
getting it? The
No, it
sequence
won't.
of your step statements are very important, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hence, it's always recommended to use it at the top of your top of your program. All right. So
I
that
will
it
use
gets
it, and
executed first so
if I
that
get
SAS will keep the flag on to show the message of your macro variables getting resolved successfully. So when you process this, it will show you this values getting resolved at this every point. Understood?
okay, if I will try, and I will, if I don't get it, I will ask again.
Okay, no problem. So simdel is to delete the macro variable which are currently in the memory. Remember, you cannot delete automatic macro variables. It's only to delete your user defined macro variables. All right. Any questions?
Ashwini, what is the need to delete user defined? Because
It's just to free the memory.
but once we close the SAS session, it will automatically gets deleted, right?
Yes, it's always a best practice that once you create, you write in your program, you delete it immediately, as we did here.
Okay.
It's because, see, currently you're working in a very small environment of your classroom training with small data sets. When you're working in a huge environment, you might be working with multiple codes at a time. Every code you might be using a macro. So it's always better have a best practice that when you are creating, you're using it, see to it, you delete it. Create, use, delete. So that the memory keeps on freed up, because this program, if you are reading it, you are reading to create this report today at morning 9 a.m. You have another program which is creating another macro variables, which is again is scheduled to be executed at suppose at 10 a.m. So like this, in a live scenario, you have various codes which are processing every time, and those codes might be having macro variables. So imagine every time a macro variable is creating, it's utilizing the space in the memory. So like this, it's not you alone as a programmer who is working. You might have a team of people who is working. So in that case, always have a best practice, create, use, and delete so that the memory space is freed up. Getting it?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. That's it, and an exercise. So post this exercise, you have how one can delimit a macro variable reference, but this will take it in the next class. But let's at least take one exercise for this topic. User defined macro variables with page 2-45. Let's create this very simple one. Go ahead, open this existing code and try to create a macro variable on this hard coded value. Then change this value with the macro, and then same code has to be used to change this value to type, which is maybe internet. Now go ahead and work. Very simple code. It's exercise E05 for an existing lesson 2 for macro 1. So how you'll find this code? Go into your servers folders in your Mac folder, macro 1 folder. Come with after demo for lesson 2, you have exercise. Is it there? E05? Yes, E05. So let's create a macro. Done. So this is your solution for exercise 1.
Yes, Ashwini.
Okay. Shanmuga, Priyanka, Vikram, Arun, Swarupa, Dharni.
Yes, Ashwini.
So see, Swarupa, your answer for your question is here itself. You open up the option for symbol gen, you check your log while it is resolving, and you close that option. So
Yeah.
that upcoming program will not have any symbol gen effect.
Okay.
Now I've written this percent let. Why? Because just for you to understand, otherwise it's not required. Earlier I had created type with code, then the same type variable will now get overwritten with internet. So when I now create a report, I get the values for internet customer. Getting it?
Yes.
If I want gold, I will just represent this as one place or one value change and I re-execute it. Of course, I'm turning off my title and footnote syntax effect also. Hence, at the bottom of my code, I get title and footnote, null statement, and I'm suppressing no symbol chain. And the result which I'm getting is for only customers with gold or gold type of custom. All right. So simple, just an introduction how one can create user-defined macro variable. And the second level is the same thing with numeric substitution. So this you can do it as your self-study. So we'll stop for the day. So do you have any questions for me on this topic on this? Yes, any questions?
So
Right
far,
now,
no.
no.
No, as if now?
No.
Yeah.
All
Like,
right. So with this, I will stop our day. For our next session, we'll be starting delimiting a macro variable reference and complete this lesson with macro functions. So what is this? We'll all see in detail in upcoming topic. So I would request you for this chapter, please go through all the demonstrations, activities and exercises. And in case anywhere where you find you have an doubt, please ask me in our next session. All right. So for this day, we'll stop. Wish you a good night. Thanks for attending our class. Bye and take care.
Okay, Ashwini, thank you so much.